You can't move too much though.
Alright. Alright, so the reason what we're doing the talk today is we want to talk a little bit about why it's important for MS people to exercise, and what's the latest evidence out there. Also want to use it to talk about when you should be coming to see a neurophysio. It's given, Melissa just mentioned, it's kind of using this as a bit of a platform to talk to you about our quite new and exciting MS type therapy group class that we're going to be starting. And also about what other services are available here. We've been set up as a neurological practice for 3.5, maybe 4 years, and really so people know what's on offer here. Okay. So to start with, multiple sclerosis. We know it's this progressive chronic neurological, it's an autoimmune disease. Okay, what's happening is that there is breakdown of the insulated sheaths around the nerves, and this affects how the nerves conduct. Okay, it can happen anywhere within the central nervous system, so we're talking about the brain and the spinal cord. Now, often it's diagnosed through an MRI scan, and they'll often talk to you about plaques. There's C plaques in the MRI scan. Okay, and that shows where the damage is on nerves. Now, because it can happen anywhere in the central nervous system, the presentation can be very variable. Okay, everyone can be quite individual with their symptoms. Okay, and the course of the disease can be quite different. You may be aware that there's 4 main types of MS. There's often 3 that most of you refer to. There's the relapsing remitting, which is about 80 to 85% of people diagnosed with MS. There's primary progressive and secondary progressive. Okay, and there's also benign as well. It is the major cause of disability, neurological disability in young adults. And because, as I say, because the variation of where the plaques are means that the symptom presentation can be huge, okay? Now some of you, the people here that we've got with MS might look at this and go, oh, yeah, I've got lots of these, and some of you might be like, oh, well, I've only got 1 or 2. Okay, so it's important when working with people with MS that the list of presentation can be huge and it can be quite small, so it's very individualised. Hopefully all of those make sense to people. Now, the thing that I really want to focus on is MS and activity. Okay? What's quite scary is the statistics are that people with MS are the most inactive neurological population out there. 78% participate in no form of physical activity. Okay, we're talking about just going for a walk. We're not talking about turning up at the gym several times a week. We're just talking about doing those things like gardening and actually being physically active. And 78% is a huge figure. There's been some very interesting studies on step counts. A normal person will take about 10,000 steps a day. Someone with MS is looking at about half of that. Okay, and that's a study done on over 600 people with MS. They also got a really wide audience there. What's quite interesting, when you read a lot of the research, people often will do the 6 weeks or the 12-week exercise program great, and then they stop. Okay, often with MS participating in exercise, I'll often start something really well, but there is this really high dropout rates and this kind of continuation of being physically active. And that's the kind of questions that we want to try and help and answer and sort from here. So why so inactive? Okay, one of the first ones is fatigue, and I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about fatigue in the next couple of slides. But when we're looking at that referral system, I've got a bit of a quote about poor referrals. This is some research was done in 2011 by Keys et al., who basically asked lots of people in New Zealand about MS and kind of their perceived barriers and facilitators to exercise. And one of them came back to say, I don't think the medical profession promotes exercise. Whether they don't see it as their job. I mean, I like my neurologist. She was very good. But she never has spoken to me about exercise, and neither really did the MS nurse in the hospital. Okay? So this is often quite a recurrent theme of who's really promoting the exercise out there. There's lots of things about heat intolerance, and again I'm going to cover some of these reasons why. I'd like to just highlight here about exercise causes relapse. Now, out of all the thousands of research published about MS, there's not a single paper that says someone had a relapse from their MS. This was something that was brought up in the late 70s about this increase of symptoms when people exercise, and I'll talk a little bit about why that happens. But there is no evidence to show that exercise will actually cause a relapse. Okay? And also there's people who have never exercised before, they've never really been interested in it, so why would you start now? There's So this brings me on to this model. Now I'll talk through this because I understand this isn't very clear to see. I'm going to move over this way, hopefully that doesn't distract now. Is when I was saying the research piece of in 2011, they kind of really found out what were the facilitators and barriers around exercise and MS. And it really hinges on this middle point about beliefs. Okay? If you've got really strong beliefs about the importance of physical activity, then you're going to have those behaviours. Okay? So what's interesting, and they looked at, some of the key principles that really fed into these. Pre-activity, if you were really into an activity, okay, you were really sporty or you were something you did absolutely lots and you got the diagnosis, you probably still want to do this. Okay, an example is my brother-in-law is a very keen fisherman. He's had MS for well over 20 years. He's been wheelchair bound for well over 10 years. He will still go out fishing several times a week. He's got a hoist to lift his whole wheelchair up onto the boat. And for him, the MS hasn't stopped. That was a pre-activity, and it's like nothing's going to stop me doing that. Okay. Interesting, it's the messages about physical activity. And again, we've just talked about, if you're not being told, if the neurologists and the MS nurses and physios you see, if people aren't telling you that physical activity is important, then you're not going to get the messages. And it's also the negative messages, in the MS support groups. People might say, I tried going to the gym, but it flared up my symptoms, or, I found I've just been too tired, then it's actually feeding more negative appearances in this belief that actually physical activity isn't going to work for me. Previous experience, again, if you've done exercise to make you feel really good, you've done something, you've been like, you've been really sore, really stiff, you've gone into the hydro pool and you've come out thinking, that pain is gone that's been radiating down my leg, that's going to make you think, well, this is good for me. However, again, if you did something, and say you're in a step class or doing something and you're the one that's constantly tripping over the step and going on the wrong way and you can't keep up, well, you're not going to want to go back to it. Okay. Significant illness-related events. This is often things about, when you've had that diagnosis, when there's been a relapse, when something's changed, whether it's, you've had to stop the employment you're at, that's really going to hit into the emotional and can you do it. And I just wanted to read out a quote from here, which was really interesting when this lady, when I was first diagnosed with MS, I thought to myself, you had better do something about this. You're going to need a walking stick. So I went out and got myself a walking stick and I thought, it's alright, I won't use this until I really have to. But then I started to use it when I didn't need it, and then I became reliant on it because I thought it was what I was supposed to do. After a wee while, and I'm talking 5 to 6 years of using that crutch, I really did not need to use it. It was a crutch of a different sort. It was a mental crutch rather than a physical crutch. There's also the what ifs. What if I fall over? What happens if I fall over in the gym? How am I going to get up? Who's going to help me? How embarrassing is that going to be? What if I go to the pool and actually my bladder control isn't very good and I need to get out of the pool quickly to go to the toilet? How easy is that going to be? So, if you keep, putting these, simple barriers in this what ifs, again, this is going to really impact on how much you're going to exercise. The main one, again, I'm going to talk about this next slide, is fatigue impacts on all of this. Okay? And then you probably can't see this because it's very blurry, so I'll read it out from here, is the things that kind of interrupt the middle is, what are your management strategies? If you've got a good management strategy for fatigue, this is going to help with physical activity more. Have you got social support? Have you got other friends that are going to, come and exercise with you? We talk about self-efficacy. What's your impairment level? Is your local gym wheelchair friendly? Actually, the swimming pool, the nearest hoist is 40 kilometres away. Well, then that's suddenly a big barrier of how you're going to be involved in physical activity. Okay. So fatigue. It is the most self-reported symptom of MS. Okay. What's really interesting is that there's 3 kind of main types of fatigue. It's a real debilitating tiredness. Okay. There is primary, which means that from your MS symptoms, it is a main symptom. Okay? However, it can very easily be confused with both secondary and inactivity. Now, secondary symptoms is that we know things like pain, okay, the poor sleep, cognitive impairment, all make you more tired, okay? If you find that you're at work and that, you know, your memory's not quite so good, you're having to write everything down, you're having to work a lot harder to stay on the ball, it's going to make you feel more tired. If you don't sleep so well because you've got this horrible neuropathic pain radiating down one arm throughout the night, you're going to wake up more tired, okay? But there's also inactivity. Human bodies are actually really lazy, all right? The less you do, the less you want to do. An elite prime Olympic athlete, if they stop exercising, they don't stay an elite prime Olympic athlete, they will become unfit as well. And this is the thing that often the less you do, the harder it is then to do something after that. Well, there's lots of research out there, okay, to show that, I think they looked at this year's 17 randomised controlled trials. All of them reported a significant improvement in fatigue with exercise. There has not yet been any research that shows that exercise causes an adverse event in fatigue. Okay? Talked lots about structured management plans. One thing those people here with MS, when we talk about rest isn't sat down on the computer, think I'll check my emails, or I'll sit down and watch some TV, or I'll put the radio on. Rest is resting everything, okay? It's turning off the visual stimulus, it's turning off that auditory stimulus. The amount of times I talk to people and say, oh, when do you take your rests? And they're like, oh, well, I tend to sit down and eat dinner watching the TV. And I'm like, well, and that's your rest? Well, you're physically moving and you're mentally still taking on all this information. You need to make sure that those rests are pure rests to recharge those batteries.